Welcome back, Exiles! Before we get into the video, just wanted to let you know I'm in a podcast called Baited Expectations with Pie by Pie, Brittleknee, and Valina. You can find it on Pie by Pie's YouTube channel or catch it live on Twitch, links down below. Now let's get into the video. Okay, here's the deal. I'd originally planned 2 videos for Heist. One would cover the most interesting bits of disconnected lore that Heist gives us. I'll still try to make a video like this as there's plenty of interesting nuggets to talk about that aren't necessarily related to each other or Heist itself. The second video was going to talk about the ring, namely who the boss is, the implications of the ring, and the connections between the different members of the ring and the boss. You may be looking at the title of this video and thinking, oh, so this is that boss video? No. You know why? Because we aren't even told who the boss is. The final Heist contract gives us no information. And even worse, there are 2 contracts still missing from the game that were directly acknowledged by GGG before launch that have game data, including dialogue and the contracts themselves, that seem to be the glue that would hold both my videos together. These contracts are taken out by Nanette, a Green Quest contract called the Book of Jamonra, and a unique contract called Jamonra's Rest. These are important because they discuss the Faradun and their relationship to the Mariketh. The Faradun are a society composed of deformed or sickly babies the Mariketh have left in the desert to die. Tasuni of Highgate might have ended up with the Faradun if his own tribe hadn't found him and taken him back. Any babies that survive in the desert after being abandoned are seen as chosen by the gods, and the Mariketh must take them back. So the existence of these Faradun, that Mariketh like Adia know exist, implies the Mariketh expect these babies to die or to be picked up. Was Tasuni found by the Faradun and rejected? Or is that only in the north, near Adia's tribe? Who knows? Not me! Not only that, but Nanette and Tasuni both seem to be able to hear strange voices, implying either abandoned Mariketh babies or the Faradun themselves have mysterious powers and possible connections to the gods and/or Nightmare. And the tension between Adia, a legitimate Mariketh, and Nanette is palpable. Nanette even asks Adia if she has killed any babies lately. Yikes. Nanette takes out these contracts to find legitimacy for the Faradun that would prove their founder, Jamonra, was a hero. There's interesting threads between the Mariketh and the Asmiri, and no, I can't get angry about this again. Sure, GGG has omitted the 2 most interesting contracts promised to us, and they didn't give us any information about the boss. But if I can't be the lore master, I'm forced to be the conspiracy theorist. So after all that, after waiting for any word from GGG on if there's more content to come, I'm left here putting together a puzzle with huge missing pieces. And today we're going to try to figure out who the boss of the ring really is. Now, some people have come to the conclusion that Kurai, the administrator, is actually also the boss. This is because our final series of contracts involve her and the twins, 2 Oriath dickheads named Vinny and Vic, who run their own underground operations that conflict with the ring's work. Kurai asks us to steal a book called O Eternal, which was written by Victario, the people's poet, who helped High Templar Vol stoke support for the Purity Rebellion. Victario Vox, Vic, is probably named after this same Victario, but that's about all they share in common because Victario was a hero to the people and a master of words, and Vic Vox is a cat killer. I'm still mad about that. Forever mad about that. Here's one more actual lore bit for you. The Vox twins are likely relatives of Cardinal Vox, the Templar Legion boss. Not much is known about Cardinal Vox besides that he was a Templar, and the same can be said about the Vox twins, except we know they are cat killers. Anyway, Kurai's initial mission of stealing O Eternal is a personal contract. She wishes to take the book, which is an ode to Kaum's niece, Hiri, to Namakanui, home of the Karui. However, the twins take out a contract to negotiate the book's return. In this contract, the negotiation, we escort Kurai to a meeting with Vic Vox, who asks Kurai to kill us in front of him if she won't return the book. She declines, and in retaliation, the twins kidnap Kurai's cat, Hana. This starts the contract the rescue to save Hana, but Hana has been killed by the Vox twins as vengeance, and we have to see it. What the hell? Kurai says that the boss doesn't normally take personal feelings into consideration regarding contracts, but he'll make an exception here. He would also like to see the Vox twins' business dismantled as their competition. So, he allows us to kill the twins for both vengeance and business, and Kurai gives us a bonus of 10k markers from the boss, about enough for one wing reveal on a grand heist. So, it makes some sense that Kurai would be the actual boss. The boss having a now personal vendetta against the twins and granting us a bonus on behalf of Kurai could lead one to accept that Kurai was actually the boss all along. But this is boring. How boring and small. Let's lay out what we do know about the boss. I'll presume that the boss is an NPC we have seen or heard of in-game. While there are a few different accounts of the boss's antics and occupations, there is one actual physical description of the boss, from Focano the barber. Focano claims that the boss is bald, hairless as the day he was born. So we can eliminate quite a few suspects immediately, basically all the women NPCs and quite a few of the men. Now the question is, how hairless? Completely shaven? Naturally baby smooth? Does a beard count? I'm gonna narrow our pool just to people with bald heads, shaven or not, who still have beards. Unfortunately, some NPCs, namely those in the Syndicate, wear masks or head coverings that make it impossible to tell if they're bald. So we're left with the following candidates: Elrion, Hillock, Riker, Varici, Giannis, Aramir, Hargan, and Tasuni. Easy first elimination, Hillock. Hillock is not smart. He's jarringly amusing as a Syndicate member, considering that he's an alleged bad toucher of women and children, but he certainly doesn't seem capable of organizing a well-managed crime ring in which almost no one knows his true identity. Another easy elimination is Riker. This is because Riker is one of the people taking out contracts from the ring under the name the Midnight Tinkerer. While I think Riker has the brains to pull off the ring, he probably doesn't run it and also take out his own contracts with his name attached. That would be pretty sus. We can also rule out Giannis because even though he was probably in Oriath for a while before the Order of the Jinn took him in, he was a poor orphan. While he could fit Tibbs' story of being a stable boy at the arena, it's less likely that he was able to break into banks or watch plays, as others claim. Giannis was probably in his teens or early 20s when he was picked up by the Order. I also don't think Giannis could be trusted to run a crime ring that requires loyalty and secrecy. He's too greedy and self-aggrandizing to want to remain anonymous. He seeks to restore glory to the Perandus family name, not skulk in the shadows as an unknown. Unfortunately, I also have to eliminate one of the more interesting candidate choices, Tasuni. Many of the ring members heard of or met the boss in Oriath. While Tasuni would be both smart and mysterious enough to organize the ring, I don't think he could escape Highgate and travel to Oriath as a blind man, or that he would want to watch plays there. Gianna says that the boss knew of her because he had come to her performances. While it's possible Tasuni watches plays, I don't know if it's as possible that he could seek her out once she'd been exiled and recognize her from those plays afterwards. Tasuni would have been an interesting boss. He was almost Faradun himself, so for him to hire a Mariketh and a Faradun member of the Ring would certainly implicate interesting motives. But alas, Tasuni will have to stick with just being my top pick for next person to cause a cataclysm with the beast, and not the boss of the ring. That leaves us with Elrion, Varici, Hargan, and Aramir. Our next out is Elrion. While he'd certainly be a good boss and does value loyalty as indicated from some of his syndicate dialogue, I just can't picture Elrion stealing. Even though he disagreed with the Templars' leadership, believing fear and punishment to be against the true Templar code, and has indicated he would be a better and more just leader, I doubt Elrion was spending his time in Oriath destroying banks or poisoning horses. Adia and Nanette also imply the boss is not an honorable man, which I believe Elrion still is, even as a syndicate member. Hargan seems like a pretty good fit for this. We know he has a penchant for collecting valuable artifacts and selling them on the market. He asks us to collect 3 busts of heroes of the Eternal Empire, and even the invaluable Wings of Vastiri, the lost Mariketh headdress of their greatest leaders. And he wants to collect them to sell them. He can even be seen hanging out around the Rogue Harbor. But Hargan is directly called out by Adia at the end of her contract A Matter of Honor, where we retrieve the Spear of Solari from her sister Nashta. This spear is another precious Mariketh artifact, a weapon fit for a god, that belonged to a Sekima named Solari. Solari was a twin who ruled the Mariketh with her sister Lundara, who are both clearly actually Solaris and Lunaris, but I'll save that for the other video. Regardless, when we return this spear to Adia, she says the merchant Hargan expects its return, but he shall be disappointed. So Hargan is known to the ring as a merchant of artifacts. I doubt the boss would approve a contract taken out to steal an item he desired for himself. So even though Hargan checks a lot of boxes, bald, from Oriath, intelligent, interested in artifacts, I think Adia's comment is enough evidence that it's not Hargan. We have 2 contenders left, Aramir and Varici. I'll start with the more likely of the 2, Varici. Varici is currently part of the Immortal Syndicate, and any member of the Syndicate can be seen in the Rogue Harbor if they're not on your roster. While this might seem like it eliminates any Syndicate member, I don't think it does. Kurai says the boss is a very busy man, which means they're not solely focused on running the ring. Whoever is the boss has some other duties they must attend to. Varici is an assassin who works with the Brotherhood of Silence. When he was a Forsaken Master, before the Syndicate, he was interested in virtue gems, understanding them and how best to utilize them. He's also completely clean-shaven with no hair or beard to contradict Fakano's claim that the boss is hairless. Now, let's discuss the stories each rogue gives us about the boss and compare that to what we know about Varici. I won't include Ela, Vinderi, or Niles because their dialogue about the boss gives us nothing to work with. Adia says that the boss is no Sekima. He rules through deception, obfuscation, and manipulation. This means the boss is sneaky, and who is more sneaky than an assassin? I'll start a little tally system indicating if the rogues' descriptions fit our candidates. Nanette says she's been looking for someone to follow and look up to, and the boss is not that. But the boss has provided a society for unwanted scum like her. Varici as an assassin probably wouldn't be seen as admirable or inspiring to others. Check. Faustus says the boss is a man of 1,000 faces, or no face depending on who you ask. That is absolutely what an assassin would want, to be unknown for their real identity, obscured in shadow. He claims he hasn't heard any stories about the boss that ring true, and that the truth is even stranger than the stories we've heard. Well, being an immortal assassin is a pretty crazy story, so I will give this one a check. Karst heard that the boss once broke into the first bank of Theopolis, moving fortunes around and burning records. If Varici was hired as an assassin by someone important, burning the records in a bank could be needed. Being able to pick locks would also be a valuable skill. Check. Talina claims the boss is paranoid, so paranoid in fact that he lives underground, makes everyone undress and put on a robe before visiting, and can only be approached from the front. A trained assassin would absolutely be wary of anyone visiting them, so this is a big check. Huck doesn't know anything about the boss, but mentions that many people are reluctant to hire veterans of the Blackguards who left under less than ideal circumstances. I doubt an assassin would care about Huck's dismissal, but would appreciate his skills. Check. Tibbs believes the boss started as a stable boy in the Grand Arena, and was asked to poison the Octavius family horse to allow another horse to win. Apparently, the boss poisoned the Octavius horse, but also poisoned that person's horse, and bet the money he was given on a third horse, then ran off with that money. While this isn't a perfect fit, being hired to poison someone or something could be the start of an assassin, so tentative check here. Kurai has mentioned that the boss is too busy to be present, beyond wanting to remain anonymous. But she also says that when it comes to business, the boss does not normally take personal feelings into consideration, but he has made an exception here, after the Vox twins have killed Hana the cat. Many assassins cannot take personal feelings into account when doing their job. I don't see Varici as much of a cat person, but maybe he just needed to make sure Kurai was happy. Another check. Gianna claims that the boss had seen her in plays before her exile. It's possible that an assassin would attend plays, especially if they were tracking targets. But Gianna claims that he was a practitioner of the performing arts himself in his youth. I personally have a hard time picturing the cold, sassy assassin Varici performing in plays. I also don't think Varici looks particularly old, so I would say this only partially checks out. Now, Fukano's description of the boss as bald has been our biggest deciding factor here. Fukano knows nothing about his background, citing conflicting tales of a smuggler kingpin, a Theopolis aristocrat, and a retired arena champion. But Fukano also claims to value his life more than digging into the background of an old, bald, gladiatorial smuggler. We can dismiss the gladiatorial smuggler bit, but old? Is Varici old? You know who is old? Aramir. I know what you're thinking, Noodle, he's still got some hair. He's just an old man hanging out with the remaining Asmiri, chilling in his retirement, doling out wisdom and stuff. Sure, but Aramir is smart. Aramir is loyal. And when Aramir lived in Oriath, he took patronage from High Templar Dominus for his museum. So, Aramir was once a collector. Maybe Aramir has gotten bored on Rayclass, just hanging out, and has decided to start a side hustle. Let's go through the same checks. Adia and Nanette say he is not admirable, that he is deceptive and manipulative. Okay, Aramir seems like a nice guy, but at one point he did help High Templar Dominus in his pursuits. He's incredibly intelligent, so he could easily be manipulative, and his stature would probably not impress a Mariketh or a Faradun. But we don't even know if they've met him, or if they just know of his actions. His knowledge could be used to be deceptive. Aramir also seems more likely to be accepting of outcasts like Nanette, so half check. Faustus claims the boss is the man of many faces. Well, Aramir knew about Ralakesh, the god of many faces. Because he's such a high-profile exile, having worked with the Shaper, formerly Valdo Caesarius, and High Templar Dominus, he would want to keep a low profile. His story would also be stranger than any of the other stories we've heard. A corrupt museum owner who escaped to Rayclast and now lives among the probably last remaining Asmiri, trying to help them survive? We know Aramir wants to kill the bandit lords because the taxes they impose on the Asmiri are destroying them. Would Aramir start a smuggler's ring to fund the Asmiri? Probably. And Aramir would have the pull in Oriath to get someone like Faustus, a captain, I guess admiral now, of the Oriath Navy to assist in this operation. Check. As for Karst and Tibbs, both stories involve standing up to corrupt wealth, particularly the Octavius family. The Octavius family is introduced in Metamorph. The patriarch, Lucan Octavius, studied the dark matter that his former slave Tane now hunts. In Tibbs' story, the boss decides to poison both the Octavius horse and the horse of the person who hired him, which shows some Robin Hood morality. In Karst's scenario, the boss not only moved around the fortunes of Oriath families like the Octavius, but burned records in the bank. someone like Aramir, who no longer wanted to be followed by the Templars and was disillusioned by the corruption in Oriath, might do that. I can't picture him killing or lockpicking, so just a tentative check here. Talina claims the boss is paranoid and lives underground. Aramir certainly wouldn't want to be recognized, and his location would give plenty of underground places to set up, considering the Vol ruins nearby. This is technically another check. With Huck, I'm sure Aramir would have no problem hiring an ex-Blackguard who is dismissed. In fact, that would probably be seen as a plus, given his history. Check. If Aramir is busy taking care of the Asmiri, it explains why he has Kurai. He also seems more likely to decide a dead cat is worthy of getting revenge over being more measured in response, rather than an assassin who would be more calculating. Check. Gianna's claim that the boss was once in theater fits much better with Aramir. He is dramatic and well-spoken with much knowledge about the world. I can absolutely picture him not only watching but participating in plays. Also, Aramir is definitely old, so claiming he was in plays in his youth isn't out of place. Big check. And of course, Fakano claiming the boss is old and bald. Granted, Aramir still has some hair, I get it, but he's definitely bald. And wouldn't it be so much more interesting if the unassuming, wise exile living amongst the Asmiri created a crime ring to be able to fund a better life for those who took him in? A man with a storied history of working amongst corruption, who has a history of collecting artifacts for his museum, returning to a similar life with the goal of helping those Asmiri? Aramir is one of the only people mentioned who never shows up in the Rogue Harbor, and maybe that's because he is the true boss of the ring. But let's be real, it's probably Varici. That makes a lot more sense in a lot more ways. Or who knows, maybe there was another person that was going to be revealed that was totally new to the lore. Maybe we're supposed to assume the boss was always Kurai based on that lame finale to the twins, and Fakano's just a big old liar. Maybe the boss was inside us all along. I guess we'll never truly know. Thank you so much for watching. It's your boy Noodle. Obviously there were some delays due to missing League content, but I'm still planning to make 2 more videos about Heist, the random lore, and the ring members lore. Thanks to all my subscribers, and an even bigger thanks to my patrons. You're really helping me stay sane, Exile.